What's going on, everybody? Lime Knight 74 here. Growing up, I always had a Game Boy in my pocket, and for the longest time I had a Game Boy Advance. Specifically, I had a Game Boy SP. And on the Game Boy Advance, they had a ton of great games on there, and I'm here to talk about my personal top 10 favorite Game Boy Advance games. Now, on this list, it's going to be consisted of the games that I grew up playing. So you're probably not going to see all your favorite ones on there, because these are the ones that I personally played, so these are my favorite. And if you don't see them on there, that's alright, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. So this is my top 10 best Game Boy Advanced games. Number 10 on my list is Rayman Advance. Rayman Advance was a faithful port from the original PS1 game onto the Game Boy Advance, and they did an absolute fantastic job. I grew up loving the Rayman game as a kid, and when they brought it to handheld where I could take it on the go in my mom and dad's car, I was so excited. Rayman Advance had everything you loved as a kid: great gameplay, great mechanics, side-scrolling for any proper 2D platformer, and of course that Rayman banger of music. Now, I'm not going to sit here and prattle on about how good this game is, because it is a PlayStation 1 game just ported in, but I digress that it is a fantastic game, and that's why it's number 10. It's lonely low because it is actually just a port. Number 9 on my list is Sonic Advance. Now, if you've been on this channel before, you know that I'm a big fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And Sonic Advance is no different than most of the Sonic the Hedgehog games we grew up in the 90s is. It's a 2D platformer with lots of special little things added in. It's also the very first game that you could play as Amy in Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. So this game, you basically had a classic Sonic the Hedgehog game that you could take on the road with you. That was the biggest perk for when I was a kid, is I loved Sonic the Hedgehog, got to take it with me in the car or to my grandma's house or wherever I wanted to go. I didn't have to be stuck on the Saga. That was a huge plus in my book. Sonic will always hold a place in my heart, a special little place, and this is no different. I loved this game growing up, loved being able to take it with me, and that's why it's number 9 on my list. Number 8 on my list is Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku number 2. Now, I owned all 3 Legacy of Goku games, and out of the 3, I would say this is my favorite, only because this is the one I spent the most time playing as a kid. The first game was all the way up until Planet Namek. This game, however, was basically all of the Cell games, which is one of the best sagas in the Dragon Ball Z anime. It also introduced the whole flying around the map thing. I thought that was really cool, and I remember flying around as a kid all the time with some of my favorite characters, going around just beating up bad guys. This game was just the classic GBA beat 'em up game that I absolutely loved playing as a kid. And like I mentioned, you can play as some of the best characters. You got Piccolo, Vegeta, Trunks, and then finally, towards the end of the game, you can play as Goku, even though it's called a Legacy of Goku game. How ironic is that? But yeah, I got to play as some of the iconic, great characters in GBZ, and just see them beating up on thugs and fighting the androids and Cell and stuff. I just had a really good time with this game. So overall, all 3 games are great. I enjoyed them all for different reasons. The first game was great, introduced me to the franchise. The second one, which is why it's on this list, is my favorite saga, and that's why I picked this one out of the 3. And then Boo's Fury, of course, is the end of the franchise, which is fighting Boo. But overall, the whole point of this was that the Cell games were my favorite. Got to play as Trunks, which is always a great thing, and that's why it's number 8 on my list. Number 7 on my list is the game Metroid Zero Mission. Now, Metroid Zero Mission was actually the very first Metroid game I had ever played, and it's a really fun game. The whole Metroidvania style games, though, I'm not the best at. That's why I was always hesitant to play this game, but I ended up playing it, and I did have fun with it. Stressed me out a lot, but I did enjoy it. I've always enjoyed the idea of playing as Samus because I like her suit, and I liked all the gadgets and stuff she can do, and fighting aliens and stuff. I like the idea of it, but I finally pulled the trigger, actually as an adult. I played this game for the first time a couple years ago, and I enjoyed it. I don't have the nostalgia for it like I do with most of these lists, most of these entries on this list, because like I said, I wasn't a kid when I played it, but I still had fun with it. I actually did a playthrough of this game on this YouTube channel. If you want to see a really garbage playthrough of me playing this game for the first time, you can click on the link below and I'll have it in the description. But yeah, like I said, this is my very first Metroid game. I did enjoy it. I think this is probably my favorite one out of all the Metroid games I've played, which is not that many to be honest. But I do think that this game holds up for being a game that came out almost 20 years ago. And that's why it's number 7 on my list. Number 6 on my list is Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green is a faithful remake of the original Red and Blue games. They went with Leaf Green because Green was the game that came out in Japan. But the reason why it's on this list is because I love this game. I love Pokemon, very obvious if you've been on my channel before, and the fact that it is a remake of the game I grew up with as a kid is a humongous perk. Basically, they made this game in the Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire style, but they just brought over Kanto. And who doesn't like playing Kanto? I mean, nowadays we've played Kanto like 500 times, but back then, this game was awesome. It was new and was sick. One thing I did love about this game, though, was it was still limited to the original roster for the most of the game, but you were finally able to utilize the Dark and Steel typings that they added in Generation 2, which made some of the Pokemon have such better moves. Oh, I love the Dark and Steel typing. Thank God they added that in Gen 2. I don't really know what else much to say about this entry. If you're a huge Pokemon fan, of course this is going to be on your list for being a great game because it's a remake of your childhood if you grew up in the 90s like I did. So yes, that is why this game is number 6 on my list. I love Pokemon. I will always love Pokemon. I'm a 32-year-old man, keep that in mind, and I still love Pokemon. And yeah, I love playing the games that I grew up with, but remade better. Number 5 on my list is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Now, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, this was actually the very first version of Chain of Memories I ever played. I bought this game because I loved the original Kingdom Hearts game, and they made a handheld version of it. Like, who thought that was ever going to happen? I actually prefer the Game Boy Advance version over the PS2 remake they did later on. The main reason I like it better is because it just feels more natural. It fits the game style better, seeing as that the game is all about cards. It's supposed to be, the combat system is being replaced with a card combat system, which people seem to not like when I was a kid growing up, because my friends when I was in grade school thought that this was really stupid. I didn't agree. I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, I think it fits better as a Game Boy Advance game. Obviously, the PS2 remake they did later on was cool for the cutscenes and the animation and all that stuff, but I liked this version more. I've always loved Kingdom Hearts. I have a Kingdom Hearts tattoo. I think Kingdom Hearts is one of the best franchises of all time, and the fact that I could have a portable on-the-go Kingdom Hearts game made things so much better. So yeah, that's why this game is number 5 on my list. Kingdom Hearts on the go always makes things better. Number 4 on my list is Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. Now, I haven't played a ton of Kirby games, but the ones I have, I love, and this is no different. I love this game as a kid, and I love it as an adult still, too. If you haven't played this game, highly recommend. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror was different than a lot of Kirby games because the whole gimmick of this game is that it's all interconnected, and you can visit any area and beat any boss in any order you want, obviously except for the last 2 final bosses. And I highly recommend playing it because instead of it just being Kirby go point A to point B, go to this world, go to that world, Mario style, it's you can go anywhere, and it was just a lot of fun. It was more of a Metroidvania style game, and they made it multiplayer. Yes, this is a multiplayer Kirby game. Back in the day, your friends could have this game on their Game Boy Advances, and you could have a multiplayer pack and have your link cables connected and all that stuff. old school style with the Game Boy Advance. It was great, and it was also terrible at the same time. But now, I'm pretty sure this game is on Nintendo Switch, and you can play multiplayer that way. But even if you didn't play multiplayer, which I didn't really do that much, if you play single player, you can get computer Kirbys to help you out, which isn't that bad. This game was just a lot of fun, and I played most of the time by myself, and I loved it. This game obviously has all the Kirby abilities and all that stuff, and there's lots of stuff you can do. Like I said, it's an open world 2D platforming Kirby game that they were trying to... There's like a little hint of open worldness before open worldness got huge, and I think it did well. It has its flaws, but hey, that doesn't matter. Every game has flaws if you look hard enough, and that's why this game is number 4, because I just had a lot of fun with it as a kid. Number 3 on my list is Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is a turn-based Mario game. It is a turn-based RPG game. I know, that's so strange, but it's my favorite one. I love Mario turn-based games, and the best one, in my opinion, was this one. There are plenty of them out there, but this one is hard to beat. It's definitely the best one. In this game, you are Mario and Luigi, obviously, and you are going to be visiting the nearby kingdom of Bean Bean Kingdom. It is a kingdom where everything is a pun based on beans. It's hilarious and also annoying at the same time. Basically, the villain of the game steals Princess Peach's voice, and you are going to have to team up with your brother to stop the villain from using their voice for evil. I know, super complicated backstory, but that's basically the gist of it. One of the things I love the most about this game is the gameplay mechanics itself. It's obviously a turn-based RPG game, and that means that it's going to have a bunch of cool combos and cool abilities that you and Mario and Luigi can learn. And the reason why I like these games more than the 3D platforming games is because they focus a lot more on story. Most of the time, if you're going to play a tactical RPG game, it's going to focus heavily on writing a good story, and that is what matters the most to me when I play video games. Now, while this game is a Game Boy Advanced portable handheld game, you better strap in and be ready to play at least 18 plus hours on this game, because it is a decently long game for a Game Boy Advance game. But yes, that is the reason why this is number 3 on my list. This is a fantastic game. If you give me a Mario game based with a great story, with great game mechanics, and a great hilarious style comedy to it, I'm all in. Give me this game. I played this game so much as a kid. Number 2 on my list is Pokemon Emerald. Pokemon Emerald is the first game I played from Generation 3. I actually did not play Ruby or Sapphire. I started with Emerald. And like everybody expects, Pokemon Emerald is awesome. Pokemon Emerald is a game that almost all diehard Pokemon fans love, and they have good reasons to. While Generation 3 isn't my favorite generation because I'm a kid from the 90s, it did introduce a whole bunch of great Pokemon that I absolutely love. One of them, which I actually got a tattoo of. And this game has a great story. I love the fact that you can play against 2 different teams depending on which version you get, and both respective teams continue on flowing the story very well. I also love the fact that you get to catch Rayquaza at the end of the game. You have the chance to get both of a Kyogre and Groudon and get Rayquaza. Overall, this is just a really fun, awesome story, really fun, awesome Pokemon game that most Pokemon fans love replaying. So if I'm going to go pick up a Game Boy Advance Pokemon game, this is the one I go for, and that's why this is number 2 on my list. The number 1 spot on my list is Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. Now, Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap is not only my favorite Game Boy Advance game, it's actually my favorite Zelda game as well. I love this game. I think the visuals to this game are the best visuals in all of 2D Zelda. There's plenty out there, but I love the art style that this game had. This game is also different than the other Zelda games because it was made by Capcom, which makes the gameplay style different than a lot of other Zelda games. a huge draw to this game for me is I love the world of the Minish. I love the lore behind the Minish. I love the idea that there's a little world shrunken down and that the smallest things can become a giant obstacle for Link to do. Like even like a small little choo-choo can be a giant boss in one of the dungeons. One thing this Zelda game different than a lot of other Zelda games is they added the feature kinstones. You could kinstone fuse 2 different stones with other NPCs throughout the game. What it did is it made it where it made you want to go explore the world more to find more fusions, and every time you did a fusion it would unlock either like an opening for a new path, a new item, you get some kind of event would happen. But it made the game more fun. It made it a lot more fun to explore, and a lot of completionists likes to go and complete all of the kinstone fusions. Overall, this is an absolute banger of a Zelda game, an absolute banger of a Game Boy Advance game, and that is why this is my #1 pick for the best Game Boy Advance games. Well, there you have it, folks. There is my top 10 best Game Boy Advance games. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you guys have your own list, I'd love to see what you have to say. Comment them below down in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next video.